Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
WisconsinEye covering elections at the Milwaukee Public Library. Andy Lamb of Mequon is a Democrat running in the 23rd Assembly District. Andy, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, Steve.
As you meet voters in the 23rd, number one issue that they tell you about?
It's generally the civility and competence of our government. They want good government, they want it to work for them, and if they have a problem, it's that they don't see that happening. It's not working for them, and it's not civil, it's not cooperative.
And how would you change, you pretty much outlined a tone issue in our politics. How would you attempt to change that, sir?
Well, there is a principle called the 3 C's of good government, and it is civility, cooperation, and competence. I think I possess all 3, competence and abundance. I think all 3 have been missing in Wisconsin politics for the past 6 to 10 years.
Give us a short version of your background. You're a professional what, sir?
I'm a CPA, retired. I was a finance director for Ozaukee County for 15 years, finance director for North Shore Fire Department during their 7 community consolidation for 2 years. I was in a firm that specialized in agricultural economics for 10 years and manufacturing for 14.
Thank you. Let's talk about some issues, specifically health care. Does state government have a role in recruiting or retaining physicians, nurses, and other healthcare professionals?
I think they have that role, but more importantly, I think that healthcare is a right for all citizens and not a commodity for the highest bidder.
Is the ultimate answer universal health care, do you believe?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
I've been buying insurance for the different companies I've worked for the past 25 years. Since 1988, I've seen the increase in cost. It's an astronomical increase. People can no longer afford it on their own. It makes our industry less competitive worldwide because our industry pays for the employees' health insurance, and the last one I saw was it's about $22,000 for a family. So that makes our products uncompetitive in the marketplace compared to societies that have a single-payer system.
What about healthcare in the rural areas where you have an older demographic, you have young people leaving, you have household incomes that is not as high as the statewide average, more and more health care provided by Medicaid. How do we preserve and maybe improve healthcare in the rural areas, sir?
As anyone that's dealing in health insurance will tell you, anyone that's selling it or using it or providing it, the cheapest and best answer is prevention and maintenance. And we need to concentrate on that right now. Prevention especially. Anyone that's selling health insurance now gives bonuses to businesses if they provide a preventive plan with annual physicals and those kinds of things. We can take that model and use it in any instance.
Local governments have been living with levy limits since 2006.
Yes.
Is it time to loosen those or get rid of them?
Well, that all goes to local control. I believe that the government closest to you is the one you trust the most. I think you're electing people to look over how much taxes you're paying. I don't think that's a job for Madison to be dictating.
The impasse, the gridlock in the Capitol over how do we pay for highways and bridges, how would you solve that?
Well, my experience building roads in Ozaukee County is we pay as we go. There is an argument to be made to borrow because future generations will be using those roads and future generations could be paying the debt on those roads. Mm-hmm. I still think the best answer is to pay as you go, and we have to free up money to do that. We have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be repairing, and we all know that good roads bring good jobs.
Would you raise the gas tax, the registration fee? How about tolling?
I'd be totally against the toll system. Registration hurts the individual. I would go with a tax on the gas, but I think there's other things we can do to free up money and to transfer money to our roads.
How many pennies might you vote to increase the gas tax?
You know, when it was tied to inflation, I think that was a fairly good answer. So I don't know about pennies. That's a very specific question. Let's look at the totality of it.
In light of mass shootings, school shootings, do we need to change Wisconsin gun laws, sir?
I think so.
How?
I think background checks are required for all sales. I think a waiting period is a reasonable accommodation. I don't think everyone should own the weapon that they feel that they're entitled to. I see that Elon Musk is selling flamethrowers. I think that's a bridge too far for me. So yeah, there are common sense solutions that would not prevent well-meaning people from owning guns.
The current state budget does increase state aid to K-12 public schools. Does it increase it enough, or should there be another significant increase in the next state budget?
You know, I think there needs to be more spending on public schools. I think that we are wasting a real resource in this country and our inner cities by not educating the people that need that education and need that helping hand. Not only does it decrease their earning potential for the future, but it decreases society's benefit that these people could be contributing. A hero of mine was Buckminster Fuller. He has a quote that says, "There will be one person born out of every million who will advance society enough to pay for the 999,999 other people," and I believe in that, and we are missing out on those people in our cities that are that 1 in a million.
The choice program, the voucher program, has grown from Milwaukee to Racine to statewide. What's your position on it, sir?
I'm not a fan of the voucher school system. You know, my original concept was that we've tried separate but equal and it didn't work. But since I've been running, I've been introduced to some schools that are very good in their vouchers. One was Notre Dame Academy, or graduating a lot of poor young women, taking them to college. I would make exceptions for high-performing schools like that. You know, I think there's always room for a high-performing participant, whether they're a public or voucher, but I'm still going back to public schools made this country great, and we were an early adopter of public schools for everyone, free education, and I think that's our future.
Would you freeze choice and voucher, or would you try to dial it back?
I think I would freeze it and examine all the choice and voucher schools that we have, and again, look for the high-performing ones and look for the ones that are just in for a profit motive.
A big issue in the next state budget is whether we're going to need a new state prison. The prison in Green Bay and Waupun, the prisons were built in the 1800s. We're closing the 2 juvenile prisons. Do we need a new state prison?
I'm not sure we need a new state prison. When I was with Ozaukee County, we were taking state prisoners as boarding. The state drew those back. It cost Ozaukee County $1 million a year in lost revenue. We have a lot of jails in our system. It would keep the people closer to their families, and it would bring money into the local governments, and it would not necessitate a new prison or a for-profit prison system.
Wisconsin incarcerates the highest number of African Americans in the nation. Your thoughts on how to fix that?
That's a very sad statistic. I think education goes a long way to that. I think, like healthcare, education, prevention, and maintenance are the simplest, most cost-efficient ways to handle many of society's problems, and I think that kind of attitude would help with the prison population.
UW system budget, we're in the 6th year of a freeze on resident undergrad tuition. Should the freeze be extended to a 7th and 8th year?
Well, I'm all in favor of a freeze. I'd prefer to have less costly education. I have 4 children. They all have degrees. They all have debt. I think that that's a real burden for young people coming out of college. The jobs aren't that high paying in most cases, and they have this huge education debt behind them. So a freeze, for the sake of a freeze, isn't the answer. I think looking at how we can better provide quality higher education at a reasonable price is what we need to be looking at.
Should those, like your 4 children with student debt, should they be able to refinance that?
I think so. I think that's a debt that the government should provide to our students. Let's take private business out of that. Let's take high rates out of that. Let's give a reasonable rate that the state is paying for their debt, which is 1 or 2 or 3%, depending on their bond rating. Let's provide that same opportunity for our children.
The Foxconn package of tax breaks and incentives totals state and local more than $4 billion.
Yes.
You support that?
Not really. You know, I've been in government finance for a long time. Rule number one is don't make the big mistake with government money, taxpayers' money. I think not taking money from the federal government for health care and not taking money for the rail system come to about $2.5 billion. That was a big mistake, to invest $4.5 billion of taxpayer money in something that doesn't have a return on investment for 30 years and which is actually a factory, after all, is probably another big mistake. But that's too early to tell. The opportunity cost of spending $4.5 billion on this project, though, is something that could create jobs throughout the state in many areas, particularly affecting our infrastructure.
Are local employers in the 23rd seeing some potential sales with the Foxconn development?
I haven't heard that from anyone.
You haven't?
I know a lot of people that are in IT. My first question to them is Foxconn a factory or is it a Silicon Valley? The answer is always a factory, and I say factories leave. I worked in a factory, it left. They all leave at some point, and they rarely outlive the age of the employee.
Position on legalizing either recreational marijuana or medical marijuana, sir?
Okay, that's a three-prong issue at least. First, I would say we need to legalize the growing of hemp. It would help our northern counties that have poor soils and a short growing season, and it's a cash crop that we could use. Secondly, I think there's enough anecdotal, if not empirical evidence, that marijuana cures diseases and helps people in need. Talk to any vet and they'll have a personal story. And the third is legalization for recreational use would take people out of the prison, create tax revenue, and since 50% of the people in this country have admitted to using it, that decreases people's respect for law in other areas too.
Okay. Now, you don't have a primary on August 14th, do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Okay. Do you want to talk about differences between you and your primary opponent?
You know, not really. I think there's 1 degree separation between us. But I think I'm a really good candidate. I have a lot of experience to go with this beautiful television face. So, you know, I think I'm in this because I want to help the state. I retired in July with this in mind, knowing that I have this great experience in government finance that I don't want to waste. And I think I can be a real benefit for the taxpayers of Wisconsin and my district.
Thank you. Andy Lamb of Mequon is a Democrat running in the 23rd Assembly District. The primary is August 14th. Andy, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.